The snow fell in slow, heavy flakes, muffling the world like a hand over a prisoner's mouth. Beyond the wire fences, beyond the wooden guard towers, beyond the black shapes of German sentries pacing the perimeter, the night pressed in like a weight. Inside Stalag K, nothing moved. Except him. Private Elias Ward lay awake on his bunk, staring at the ceiling boards just inches above his face. The barracks were packed so tightly he could hear every breath, every cough, every whisper in his row. But tonight the sounds were wrong. Too few. Too spaced out. Someone was missing. Elias turned his head. The bunk beside him, occupied every night for the past 5 months, was empty. Corporal Matthew Reiser was gone. His boots, always placed neatly under the bed, were missing too. So was his tin cup. So was his blanket. Elias sat up, quiet as a ghost. He looked around the room. The other men slept. Or pretended to. Snow seeped through cracks in the wooden walls, drifting in soft piles near the door. The kerosene lamp flickered weakly at the end of the barracks, casting long shadows across the bunks. Elias whispered, "Reiser." No answer. He slipped off the bed, feet landing on the cold planks. He crossed to the door. The guards outside had a routine, they rotated every 2 hours. And it wasn't time yet. He cracked the door open. A blast of icy wind slapped him in the face. The courtyard was empty. The watchtower lamp pulsed slowly as the guard swayed with fatigue. Snow gathered around the gallows-like frame where the Germans posted daily orders. Today's sheet had nearly frozen solid. Elias stepped out, scanning the rows of barracks. Nothing. No footprints. No tracks. Not even a disturbance in the snow. It was as if Reiser had stepped out of existence. Then Elias noticed something on the posted board. A new list for roll call tomorrow. He stepped closer. Halfway down the page, under current prisoners, he saw it. Reiser, Matthew, present. Elias blinked. Present. Present? How? In Stalag K, everyone knew the rules. If you were marked present, you were in your bunk. If you disappeared, they marked you absent. If you escaped, they marked you dead. But here, the Germans had done something impossible. They listed a missing man as present. Elias touched the paper, feeling the cold dampness of the ink. Behind him, a voice whispered. He was never supposed to be here. Elias spun around, heart thudding. A silhouette leaned against the barracks wall, thin. Half hidden in shadow. Watching him. The figure flicked a cigarette into the snow. You want answers, the man murmured. Then stop looking for Reiser. Elias swallowed. Who are you? The man stepped forward into the dim light. He wore no prisoner tag. No identification. No insignia. Just hollow eyes and frost-bitten lips. Don't look for Reiser, he repeated. Because he wasn't the first to vanish. A gust of wind slammed the barracks door behind Elias. The watchtower lamp flickered violently. And in that brief second of darkness, the stranger was gone. Vanished. Just like Reiser. Elias stared at the empty snow, trembling. Stalag K wasn't just a prison. It was a place where men disappeared without leaving footprints. A place where the Germans pretended nothing was wrong, pretended they still counted ghosts at morning roll call. And as the moon crept over the wire fences, Elias realized something cold, something unnatural, something buried deep beneath the frost. Reiser wasn't missing. He had been taken. And Elias Ward knew. If he didn't solve the secret of Stalag K, he would be next. Elias didn't sleep for the rest of the night. He lay in his bunk, staring at the empty bed beside him, waiting for footsteps that never came. Waiting for the lamps outside to shift, for the morning horn to blow, for anything that would pull him back into a world that made sense. But when dawn arrived, it brought no comfort. Only dread. A thin beam of grey winterlight slid through the cracks in the wall. The air smelled of damp wool, unwashed bodies, and frozen earth. Men groaned and shifted on their bunks as the horn sounded 3 short blasts. Roll call. Elias pulled on his jacket and stepped out into the open yard, joining the line of shivering prisoners. Their breath rose in white clouds. The guards shouted and paced, rifles slung low, boots sinking into the frosted mud. The commandant strode forward. A tall, angular man named Major Kranz, his face carved from stone. He held his clipboard. The same clipboard that listed Reiser as present. Elias felt his chest tighten. As the line was counted, name by name, number by number, the world seemed to move in slow motion. Ward, Elias. Present. Johnson, Orrin. Present. Reiser, Matthew. Elias braced himself. Silence. Then. Present. Elias whipped his head up. But no one stepped forward. The guards didn't react. The men didn't react. Nobody moved. They simply accepted it. Accepted that a man who wasn't there had answered. Kranz didn't even look up from the clipboard. He made a small mark next to Reiser's name and moved on. Elias felt the ground shift beneath him, not physically but in his gut, in that place where truth and fear collide. He wasn't imagining this. Something was wrong with Stalag K. Deeply, impossibly wrong. When roll call ended, the prisoners dispersed in small groups, some heading for the labor fields, others toward mess hall. A few stood smoking nervously. No one talked about the missing man. No one even looked at the empty space in the barracks line. Except Elias. He scanned the yard, hoping to see the strange man from last night, the one who warned him. But he wasn't there. No tracks in the snow. No sign of him at all. As Elias walked toward the mess hall, someone grabbed his sleeve. He turned. It was Sergeant Howell, a grizzled veteran with a broken nose and eyes like smoked glass. He leaned in close. "Don't ask questions, Ward," Howell whispered. "Not about Reiser. Not about anything." Elias swallowed. "Why?" "Because there's something in this camp," Howell murmured. "Something older than the war. And the Germans aren't the ones running it." Elias's skin crawled. "What are you talking about?" Howell didn't answer. He simply pressed something into Elias's hand. A piece of torn, frozen paper. Elias unfolded it carefully. It was a map. A hand-drawn map of the camp. One place circled in dark pencil, hard enough to dent the page. Barracks 12, der Verboten Block. The Forbidden Barracks. Elias looked up to question Howell. But Howell was gone. Vanished into the crowd. Elias felt eyes on him. Not the casual glances of starving men, not the cold stares of guards. This was different. A lingering presence. A watching presence. He turned his head slowly toward the far end of the compound. Barracks 12 stood alone. Fence around it. Windows boarded shut. A guard tower pointed not outward, but inward, toward the building itself. No smoke from its chimney. No footprints leading to the door. No signs of life. Yet Elias felt it. A faint hum beneath the ground. A vibration. A wrongness. As if the building were breathing. He tucked the map into his coat and walked away before anyone noticed him. But the truth had already settled in his chest like ice. Reiser didn't escape. He didn't vanish. He was taken into Barracks 12. And if Elias wanted answers, he would have to go in there. At night. Alone. While the camp slept. Because Barracks 12 wasn't abandoned. It was hungry. And whatever lived inside knew Elias was coming. Elias forced himself to act normal throughout the day. He shoveled coal. He repaired fences with numb hands. He ate thin soup that tasted like boiled metal. All the while, he felt Barracks 12 watching him from the far corner of the camp. A silent, patient shadow waiting for nightfall. But he never looked at it directly. Not yet. Not until he understood the map. When evening came and the guards loosened their patrols, Elias slipped behind the mess hall, crouched between two stacks of frozen firewood. He pulled out the torn sheet of paper. A map of Stalag K drawn with shaky lines and obsessive detail. At the center were the barracks, latrines, command post, labor fields. But all around Barracks 12? The lines changed. They doubled, overlapped, folded in on themselves like mirror images that didn't quite match. Corridors drawn where no corridors existed. Rooms repeating. Walls leading into voids. A small arrow pointed inward with a handwritten note. Do not follow the noise. Elias felt his pulse spike. What noise? He whispered. You don't want to know. The voice came from behind him. Elias spun, nearly falling backward, but the man raised his hands in peace. A gaunt figure with hollow cheeks and sunken eyes. His clothes were ragged, his hair grey despite his youth. You're Ward, aren't you? Or the man said softly. The one asking about Riser. Who are you? Elias demanded. The man swallowed hard. Name's Carter. I drew that map. Elias stiffened. Why give it to Howell to pass to me? Carter looked around to ensure no guards lingered. Because, he whispered, you're marked. Elias's mouth went dry. Marked? By who? Not who. Carter's gaze drifted toward Barracks 12. By it. Elias followed his eyes. Barracks 12 was barely visible in the dusk. But even from afar, Elias felt a pressure in his ears, like air thickening. Carter wiped frost from his lips with a shaking hand. I was taken once, he said. Nearly pulled inside. I heard the humming. Felt the floorboards moving like something crawling beneath them. Elias's stomach tightened. What's inside that building? Carter closed his eyes. It's not a building anymore. Silence. A guard shouted from across the yard, and both men froze. When the guard moved on, Carter leaned in closer. Listen carefully, he whispered. Stalag K was built on top of an older structure, an asylum, abandoned long before the war. The Germans tried to refurbish it into a barracks block, but the place was wrong. Rooms changed size. Doors opened into walls. Men went in and came out different. Or didn't come out at all. Elias felt the cold sink deeper into him. Why keep it standing? Because, Carter breathed, the commandant believes it's useful. Elias frowned. Useful for what? To break men without touching them. Carter reached into his coat and pulled out a second scrap of paper. This was Riser's, he whispered. He gave it to me the night before he vanished. Elias unfolded the scrap. A single sentence, written in trembling pencil strokes. If I go silent, don't follow my voice. Elias felt the words hit him like a hammer. Carter grabbed him by the arm. You must not go there, he hissed. Whatever you hear tonight, whatever calls to you, ignore it. I have to find him, Elias whispered. Carter's expression crumpled with fear. That's exactly how it starts. A whistle blew. Guards barked orders. Nightfall lockdown. Carter vanished into the dispersing lines of prisoners just as quickly as he'd appeared. Elias tucked Riser's note and the map into his coat and walked back toward his barracks. But something changed in the air. The hum. Faint, distant, like a low heartbeat vibrating through frozen ground. Coming from Barracks 12. Elias stopped walking. The men around him didn't notice. They marched on, heads down, exhausted. But Elias stood alone in the yard, breathing out a thin cloud, listening to the almost music beneath the wind. The hum grew. And with it, another sound. A whisper. Soft. Fragile. Like someone calling his name from very far away. Elias? He froze. His blood turned to ice. The voice came again. Elias, help me. Riser. It was Riser's voice. Coming from the darkness around Barracks 12. His breath hitched. His heart pounded. He told himself it wasn't real. Carter's warning echoed in his skull. If I go silent, don't follow my voice. But the whisper came again, breaking, trembling, desperate. Elias, please? And despite everything, every warning, every instinct, every shard of terror crawling down his spine, Elias turned toward Barracks 12. And began walking. Alone. Into the sound. Into the forbidden dark. Because some voices you can't ignore. Even when you know you should. Elias crept across the frozen yard, boots crunching softly in the snow. Guards' lanterns swung in slow arcs at the perimeter, their light never quite reaching Barracks 12, as if the darkness around it refused to be touched. The humming grew louder with each step. Low. Pulsing. Not mechanical. Not human. Something alive. Riser's voice drifted through it, thin as a thread. Elias? I'm here. The sound guided him like a hand pulling at his spine. The closer he came, the stranger the air felt, too still, as if the wind avoided this place. The wooden planks of the barracks looked wrong, warped, bent inward like the building was collapsing into itself. When he reached the door, he froze. Scratch marks gouged the wood. Deep ones. Far deeper than fingernails could make. His heart hammered. Riser had been here. He gripped the handle. Cold. So cold it burned his palm. He hesitated, Carter's warning echoing in his head. Whatever you hear tonight, don't follow it. But the voice came again, closer this time. Please? Riser sounded afraid. Broken. Barely alive. Elias pulled the door open. A gust of freezing air hissed out, carrying a smell like damp earth and rusting iron. The interior was black. Deeper than shadow. His eyes couldn't adjust. He stepped inside. The door swung shut behind him. Thud. Total darkness. Riser? Elias whispered. No reply. The humming filled the room, vibrating through his ribs. The floorboard shifted under his boots, not creaking, moving, like something was breathing beneath them. He swallowed hard and took another step. The room stretched. Elongated. The wall seemed farther away than when he entered. He felt disoriented, dizzy. Then, a lantern flickered to life. Alone. In the far back corner. Not lit by him. Not lantern light at all. More like a glow. A dull, sickly yellow orb floating at waist height. Elias's voice cracked. Riser, is that you? Silence. Then footsteps behind him. Slow. Uneven. Dragging. Elias spun around. But saw only darkness. He backed away, toward the faint glow. The humming became a rumble, the floor buckling slightly under his feet. He whispered, Riser, please answer me. And then, a figure stepped into the glow. Thin. Shaking. Barefoot. His uniform hung off him like wet cloth, plastered to skin far too pale. His face was hidden in shadow, but Elias recognized him instantly by the posture alone. Riser. The figure trembled. Lifted its head. Elias stepped forward. But stopped cold. Because the face was wrong. Riser's eyes were missing. Just dark pits where they should have been. And his mouth hung open, jaw slack as if unhinged. But it was his voice that echoed in the room, even though the figure's lips didn't move. Elias? Elias staggered back. What did they do to you? The figure tilted its head too far. Far beyond human motion. As bones cracked softly beneath the skin. The voice came again. Help me. But this time Elias heard it. The second voice beneath it. Lower. Imitating. Mimicking. Not Riser's voice. A copy. Elias turned to run. The floor lurched, boards shifting like waves, throwing him to the ground. The figure lunged, limbs bending in unnatural angles as it scrambled toward him. The mimic voice choked out. Elias, stay? Elias crawled desperately, fingers clawing for the door. And suddenly a hand burst through the darkness beside him, grabbing his wrist. He almost screamed, until he saw the face. Carter. Wild-eyed. Terrified. Sweating. Get up. Carter hissed. Move. He yanked Elias to his feet as the creature lunged again, its jaw snapping open far too wide. Carter shoved Elias through the door. The world exploding into freezing night as they tumbled out into the snow. A monstrous wail erupted behind them. The door slammed. The humming stopped. Silence. Just their ragged breathing. Carter grabbed Elias by the collar and dragged him up. I told you, he gasped, voice shaking. I told you not to follow the voice. Elias stared at the door to Barracks 12 as frost formed on his eyelashes. That wasn't Riser, he whispered. Carter shook his head. No. But it wanted you to think it was. Elias's stomach turned. Then where is he? Carter looked at him with exhausted, hopeless eyes. We have no idea. Elias felt dread crawl up his spine. But whatever's in there, Carter said quietly, it wants the next one. And as they stumbled away from Barracks 12, Elias realized something horrifying. The voice wasn't coming from Riser. It was calling for him. And suddenly a hand burst through the darkness beside him, grabbing his wrist. He almost screamed until he saw the face. Carter. Wild-eyed. Terrified. Sweating. Get up. Carter hissed. Move. He yanked Elias to his feet as the creature lunged again, its jaw snapping open far too wide. Carter shoved Elias through the door. The world exploding into freezing night as they tumbled out into the snow. A monstrous wail erupted behind them. The door slammed. The humming stopped. Silence. Just their ragged breathing. Carter grabbed Elias by the collar and dragged him up. I told you, he gasped, voice shaking. I told you not to follow the voice. Elias stared at the door to Barracks 12 as frost formed on his eyelashes. That wasn't Riser, he whispered. Carter shook his head. No. But it wanted you to think it was. Elias's stomach turned. Then where is he? Carter looked at him with exhausted, hopeless eyes. We have no idea. Elias felt dread crawl up his spine. But whatever's in there, Carter said quietly, it wants the next one. And as they stumbled away from Barracks 12, Elias realized something horrifying. The voice wasn't coming from Riser. It was calling for him. Snow whipped across the compound as Carter dragged Elias behind the shadow of an empty watchtower. Their breaths fogged the air in sharp bursts. Elias's legs trembled, not from cold, but from the image still burned into his skull. Riser's body. But not Riser's voice. Not Riser's movements. Not human. Carter pressed a hand over Elias's mouth when he tried to speak. Quiet, he whispered. They hear sound. They follow it. Elias nodded, heart hammering in his throat. When Carter finally lowered his hand, Elias whispered, that thing. Has it taken others? Carter didn't answer immediately. He rubbed his face with both hands, the skin beneath his eyes bruised purple from nights without sleep. Finally, he said, You're not the first man who's heard a familiar voice coming from Barracks 12. Elias felt a chill spread through his chest. Tell me. Carter exhaled shakily. 3 weeks before you arrived, a Frenchman named Rousseau vanished. 2 nights later, his bunkmate woke up to hear Rousseau calling for him from outside in the snow. Carter's voice dropped. But Rousseau's body had already been taken to the infirmary. Frozen. Dead. Elias swallowed hard. The bunkmate followed the voice, he asked. Yes, Carter whispered. And he never came back. Elias felt his stomach twist. The Germans, do they know? Oh, they know. Carter nodded grimly. They're terrified of the place. Notice how the guards do their rounds. He jerked his chin toward the perimeter, where lanterns swung across the snow. They walk wide circles. They never look at the building. And no matter what they hear, they never go inside. Elias frowned. But the commandant pretends it doesn't exist, Carter finished. He writes it off as men going mad from hunger and cold. Lightning flashed in the distance. Thunder rolled behind the clouds, a low, tremoring growl. Carter leaned close. Nothing human makes noises like the ones in that building. Elias looked back toward the silhouette of Barracks 12. It loomed like a black tooth in the snowy landscape, wrong, bending shadows around itself. What is it? Elias whispered. Carter shook his head. We don't know. But it changes its shape. And it thinks. Elias stiffened. Thinks. Carter's jaw tightened. It mimics. Perfectly. The men it takes. Their voices. Their mannerisms. The way they breathe. It learns from them. A memory surged into Elias's mind. Riser's voice. Soft. Pleading. Familiar. But the mouth hadn't even moved. And it wants more, Carter added quietly. Elias stared at the barracks. His fear hardened into something sharper. If it learns from us, then Riser might still be alive, he said. Carter blinked. Elias? He might be alive in there, Elias insisted. If that thing needed his voice, maybe it didn't kill him yet. Carter looked shaken. Why would it keep him alive? Elias's voice was barely a whisper. To practice. The wind howled across the camp. Carter grabbed Elias's coat. Even if he is alive, you're not going back in that place. Elias pulled his arm free. You can't stop me. Carter glared at him, jaw clenched. Then at least listen to me. If you go back, you go during the shift change. Less guard movement. And you go with this. The door to Barracks 12 groaned as Elias pushed it open for the final time. The air inside was colder than the storm outside. Frost clung to the rafters. That strange low hum vibrated through the wooden floorboards like a heartbeat, steady and unnatural. Riser? Elias whispered. No reply. Not at first. Then. Elias? The voice floated from the far end of the room. Soft. Familiar. Pleading. Elias tightened his grip on Rousseau's bayonet and stepped deeper inside. The lantern he carried illuminated rows of empty bunks, each one perfectly made, untouched, as if no one had slept in them for years. A wrongness hung in the air. The smell of earth. Damp. And something metallic. He reached the back wall. And saw him. Riser sat hunched on a bottom bunk, facing the wall. Shoulders trembling. Breath fogging the air. Riser. Elias whispered again. Slowly, painfully, Riser turned his head. His face was gaunt, but recognizable. Alive. Eyes wide with terror. Elias, he rasped, lips cracked, don't come closer. Elias hesitated. Riser's eyes flicked toward the shadow behind him. And that's when Elias saw it. A pale arm, too long, too thin, rested on Riser's shoulder. Its fingers were curled around the side of his neck, not holding him, but studying him. Imitating how human hands behave. Then the creature stepped into view. It was almost human. Almost. Its spine curved in a way no man's could. The shoulders sat too high, the limbs too slack. Its skin looked stretched, like wet paper, scraping against bone. Its face. Its face had none of Riser's features, yet somehow wore traces of every man it had mimicked. As if it hadn't decided which mask to settle on. The creature opened its mouth. But the voice that came out was Elias's. Help me. Elias's stomach knotted. His hand shook. You let him go. The creature tilted its head, studying Elias like a child watching a clockwork toy. Then its mouth stretched wider. Help me, it repeated. Riser's voice this time. Perfect. Elias, Riser choked out, don't listen to it, just kill it. The creature twitched, jerked, then lunged. Elias swung the bayonet just as Carter had warned. The blade carved across the creature's face, splitting the stretched skin. No blood. Just a hiss, like air being sucked through dry reeds. The thing recoiled. Riser scrambled away. The creature reformed its jaw with a wet crack and rushed Elias again, mimicking his own scream, delayed by a half second, like a broken echo. Elias drove the bayonet into its throat. A shudder tore through the creature as the metal pierced deep. Its hands flailed, contorting, grabbing at Elias with desperate, jerky motions. Its shape flickered, shoulders widening, bones shifting, faces cycling like slides in a projector. Riser's face. Carter's face. Elias's own face. Then its final voice broke through. Don't leave me alone in the dark. He twisted the bayonet. The creature collapsed in on itself, folding like paper sinking underwater. Its body flattened, deflated, and dissolved into a slush of pale, fibrous tissue that sank between the floorboards. The humming stopped. The air stilled. Riser fell into Elias's arms, sobbing in relief and pain. They didn't speak for a long moment. When they finally stepped outside, the storm had passed. The moon shone across the snow, lighting Stalag K in a cold, silver haze. Carter waited outside the barracks with a rifle clutched tight. You both made it, he whispered, almost not believing it. Elias nodded weakly. It's dead. Carter exhaled in a shaking rush. Then we're leaving. Tonight. They didn't take food. Didn't take clothes. Didn't take anything but the bayonet. Behind them, Barracks 12 stood silent for the first time in years. By dawn, the three men were gone, into the forest, into the unknown, into freedom. The Allies didn't investigate. And decades later, when the camp was finally demolished, the workers reported one thing. A humming. Deep beneath the floorboards. As if something had been waiting. Learning. Mimicking. And had just realized. It was alone.